This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey, what's up? I've been playing around with a fun weeknight dinner lately that I call spaghetti chow mein. It's essentially my take on the classic Chinese food dish, but made with ingredients that you can get at your local grocery store. It's probably one of the easiest recipes that I've made so far on this channel, and just like Takeout, it tastes amazing as leftovers. This is Weeknighting. To get started, I'm gonna need 4 to 5 quarts of water in a pot and up to a boil. Once it's at a boil, I'll add in a half pound or 225 grams of thin spaghetti. Yes, that's what it says on the box. I think it's pretty literal, as in it's just spaghetti that is less thick. The main difference between this pasta and Chinese style noodles is that the Chinese ones tend to have a little bit of egg in them, whether white or yolk, and that they're a little bit more alkaline, and that can have a slightly distinctive flavor. If you can get the Chinese style noodles at, say, an international grocery store, I say go for it because they're great, but overall, I think you'll be quite happy with good old-fashioned thin spaghetti. Once the noodles are in the water, I'll make sure that that water is well salted, and then I'll also make sure to give the noodles a good stir and toss to make sure that they don't get all stuck together. In total, these noodles need about 5 to 6 minutes to cook, so in the meantime, let's figure out the rest of the prep. First up, I need to cut some button mushrooms. I'm using these ones because they're not fancy or expensive, but they're delicious, and I'm just gonna cut them in half and then slice those halves down like this. Up next is my favorite stir-fry vegetable. That's the snow pea. They're thin, sweet, crispy, and they cook super fast. To get these ones ready for the pan, I like to slice them thinly on a bias like this. In general, when peas or any stir-fry vegetables are cut more bite-sized, they tend to integrate with the noodles a lot better. Also, if you're wondering, snow peas do have a string in them, but like 90% of the time it's super thin and doesn't need to be pulled out. In total, I need 150 grams or about 2 cups of these snow peas cut. Next, I'll grab a medium carrot and then use my julienne peeler to shred it down. Carrots in stir fry are great, but not when they're chunky. I prefer a barely cooked shredded carrot here because it brings some nice textural contrast to the soft, chewy noodles. I've also got some red bell pepper here to throw in. My favorite way to cut bell peppers right now is to cut the sides off as planks like this while trying to leave as much of the white rib still attached to the core as possible. These peppers are going to be cooking along with the snow peas, so I'm going to cut them pretty thin as well. 150 grams of those in total. Now, to bring some oniony flavor to this dish, I'm gonna use 4 to 6 scallions, but I'm gonna remove the top green halves. I'll save those for something else because in my opinion, they get slimy if you cook them too hard. Now, I'll slice these scallions into kind of a chunky medium thickness. Any thinner than this and the scallion would just get lost in the stir fry, and if we went any thicker, it would probably not cook enough and give you bad oniony breath. My last little bit of prep here is to microplane some fresh ginger and some garlic. For the ginger, as you guys well know by now, I don't peel it because I'm a bad boy and because the skin is thin enough to be broken down when using a grating tool. For the garlic, I've got 3 to 4 cloves here, and I'm also going to be hitting that on the microplane. In total, I need 25 grams of ginger and 15 grams of garlic. A totally optional addition here would be bean sprouts. Pretty much every single dish at my local Chinese food place has a ton of bean sprouts in it, and I kind of dig that. So I'm setting aside 75 to 100 grams for this dish. And that's all the prep. It looks like a lot, but I think even someone who's slow with the knife could get all this cleaned up in about 15 minutes. What's that dark stuff, you're wondering? Well, that's the sauce, but we'll get to that in just a minute. For now, I'm gonna check back on my noodles. These have been simmering for about 6 minutes or so. They feel pretty tender with the tongs here, but the only way to really know is to slurp one. Be careful though, because that's pretty hot, dude. Slurp it, and we're good. Now I'll drain off the water. Texturally, I think it's best to pull these noodles out when there's still just a touch of bite to them. I mean, I don't want them crunchy, but having them be just a touch less done helps them stay springy in the pan. Overcooked noodles tend to break apart when they're stir fried, and they hold extra water that prevents a good sizzle. As you can see, once I got these drained off, I added in about 20 grams of high smoke point oil, in this case peanut oil, but canola or light olive would work as well. I transferred the noodles over to a plate, that way they won't carry over cook and get all mushy. Now let's make the stir fry. For that, I'll preheat my big dog 14-inch nonstick pan over medium-high heat. I'll link to this biggin in the description if you're interested, but feel free to sub in a 12-incher here. Just be prepared for things to be a bit more snug. Before I start cooking, I should mention that if you're using high heat in a nonstick pan, you should really be careful to keep the temperature of that pan below 450F. Much hotter than that, and you really risk degrading the coating in the pan. I usually keep my pans around 410, 420F. Once my pan is ready to go, I'll add in a good long squeezer of some neutral oil, then I'll 225 225 grams of my mushrooms, and then a strong pinch of salt. I'll give the mushrooms a few tosses here to get them combined with the oil, and then I'll saute them for about 3 minutes or so. I'll mention that these mushrooms are serving as my meaty element in this dish, but if you're in the mood for meat, which I get, use a half pound or 225 grams of diced chicken thighs. Those should cook in just about the same amount of time as the mushrooms. Again, that's about 3 minutes. Just make sure that they get a hit of salt in the beginning and that you stir fry them really hot to get some nice color on the outside. Stir-fried chicken is delicious. Back in my mushrooms, it's been about 3 minutes or so, and these have lost quite a bit of their moisture and have taken on some nice golden brown color. I want to keep these from drying out though, so I'll stop frying them here and then scoot them over into a medium bowl to hang out while I cook everything else. Now, the pan is back down over high heat, and I'll add in a bit more neutral oil, about 20 grams, and then in goes 150 grams of sliced snow peas and 150 grams of sliced bell pepper. Now a hit of salt, then I'll stir to combine, and I'll fry these up together for about 60 to 90 seconds. The goal at this stage of cooking is to get some nice char on the outside of these vegetables while also softening up the outsides just a bit. But I want to maintain a touch of crunch in both the peas and the peppers because great stir fry always has a little bit of snap to keep things lively. After about 90 seconds of sauteing here, the peas and peppers have a touch of char on the outside and they've just barely lost their raw edge. So from here, I'm going to scoot them over into my mushroom bowl to hang out while I fry up my noodles. Oh, and I'll also mention that a good reason to undercook these vegetables is that they're going to steam in the bowl and carry over cook up to another 15 to 20%. So just keep that in mind. Okay, hot pan one more time. Then a double squiz of oil goes in because my noodles are going to be thirsty as hell. Then in goes all of the cooked spaghetti from before. From here, I'll stir fry these noodles for about 2 to 3 minutes over high heat to get them good and dehydrated on the outside while I thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. When I started this YouTube channel way back in early 2020 during the Wild West days of the COVID pandemic, I also started a Squarespace website to host all of my recipes. Shout out to Weeds and Sardines. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I chose Squarespace over the other options available because I really liked their pre-built layouts and customizable templates. Overall, Squarespace made it super easy to create a clean and simple website that didn't look like it was made by a total noob, which it was. I also really like their blogging tools to share my recipes for my videos. As you can see, it's been like a while since I've posted any new content on the blog, but I'm planning to change that. I also finally claimed the domain brianlagerstrom.com, which Squarespace also made quick work of. There's no hidden fees here. There's ad-free parking and free WHOIS privacy on eligible domains. So if you're ready to start building your online presence or you want to start running your business online, go to squarespace.com and use their free trial. When you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Lagerstrom and you'll get 10% off your first website or domain. To get that true takeout Chinese food flavor here, we need to do quite a bit of frying to these noodles, and that makes this step kind of the most important part. Stir frying these hard makes them more savory and changes their texture on the outside, but there's also something else that's happening here that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe the high heat and oil smoke here kind of approximate the hay of wok cooking. They call that the breath of wok, and I'm not sure that's what's happening, but the one thing I know for sure is that this dish was much better when I gave the noodles a hard fry for at least 2 minutes, but preferably 3. Once the noodles are starting to take on a touch of golden color and are good and fried hard like this, I'll add in the ginger and garlic, the scallions, and the shredded carrots. From here, I'll hop in with the tongs and give everything a stir fry to combine. I want the carrots and scallions to soften but not become fully tender, and I want the ginger and garlic to fry up and lose their raw edge. Once my carrots are wilted in and the ginger and garlic are slightly fried off, I'm going to add in my mushrooms, peas, and bell peppers, then my bean sprouts, and then my stir fry sauce. To make this sauce, I combine 75 grams of soy sauce, 75 grams of mirin, 35 grams of sesame oil, and 25 grams of oyster sauce. Yes, there's oysters in the sauce, so if you want to make this pure vegetarian, use vegetarian hoisin. Now I'll stir that to combine, and there we go, an all-purpose stir-fry sauce that makes fried noodles and vegetables taste very, very dope. Back at the pan, I'm going to stir everything to combine while that sauce reduces to a glaze and gets absorbed by the fried noodles. At some point, I think it's better to switch over from the stir move to a straight-up toss, 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 if you can do it. For me, things get combined a lot faster this way, and it definitely looks cooler and is just overall more fun. Again, I want to reduce this pan sauce to a glaze while getting everything mixed together and gently wilting in the bean sprouts. That should take about a minute in total, but don't cook this too long because once there's liquid in the pan, there's going to be a lot of steam, and that's pretty good at making things soft. The peas and the peppers especially can go from snappy and fresh to mushy in a pretty short amount of time. Now, if we did this stir fry thing correctly, everything inside this pan should be hitting its optimal texture at the same time, and that looks great. So let's plate it up. Like most of the weeknighting videos so far, this recipe will make 2 very large portions for 2 hungry adults, or 4 smaller portions if you're serving it alongside something else, say B-Man's famous General Tso's chicken. You guys, this dish tastes like takeout, full stop, but it's fresher and more vegetable heavy and just more in focus than what I get from the strip mall. And it doesn't require you to have a deep pantry of Chinese-centric ingredients. It seems that spaghetti, whether served with meatballs or soy sauce, is just fun to eat and very comforting. If you guys like this video, give it a dang like and smash that subscribe. Let's eat this thing.